Alright, hopefully we're live here. I've had some problems, as usual. Just need to give everyone the new link. Just give me a minute. There's always a problem with me and live streams, because I can never figure out the oddities of YouTube. Alright, almost there. Shareable link, that's it. Bit of a different setup today, you'll notice. Mainly because I have to do puppy sitting. We've had some issues with our lovely pom girl. Okay, so let me just copy that into Twitter. Now, this stream is going out to everyone, so everyone should be able to see it, but the only people who can send me messages in the chat will be the ones who are already on the channel, the members of the channel. Otherwise, we're going to get too many randoms commenting things like, I would, and, ooh, nice. So to avoid that, I want to keep the stream nice and normal. Can everyone hear me? I don't know whether this microphone is working or not. I mean, yeah, it's on. So, yeah. What am I doing? Oh yes, the stream key. Paste. So what I did a minute ago, I tried to use the webcam. Hey Jeff. Hi Rita, how are you doing? I'm still sleep deprived. Although it's getting better. I managed to get 5 hours yesterday. Woohoo. New stream link. Okay. Yeah, so what I had to do here, it didn't work, the whole webcam YouTube thing, it just didn't work. So I actually had to install my normal streaming software, which is OBS, and then to copy the stream key in and everything to get it working. So yeah, YouTube still has a lot of interesting moments. Anyway, what's happening? What are you guys doing? Anyone trading anything? I see gold is turned around. I don't have my charts here because they're in my home office. But yeah, hopefully we'll be getting that value acceptance coming true. That happened very early on. All I've got is like this. But I did have a look at the charts when I first got up today, because I wanted to see what's going on. And I noticed that gold is consolidating on the daily chart. So that's usually a sign of them establishing the low for the year. And then they kind of start pushing it into the Christmas period. And that move going up typically carries on throughout at least mid-January. So be a little bit careful if you're like looking at any kind of swing gold shorts, because that's out of the norm for this time of the year on gold in particular. So yeah, for those of you who don't know much about me, and maybe you've just watched me on YouTube, but you don't really know much about my love of dogs and stuff that I like to do outside of trading, we were kind of pining for our our lovely cattle palm dude that we lost last year. This dude here is like amazing dog. And we decided, by chance, we actually got a second dog for our Cavalier, Leonard, and they got on like a house on fire, so they are now having babies together. And the babies arrived earlier. They arrived on the 28th of November. We were expecting them on 2nd of December. So now, and we were also expecting 2 or 3. So we got 6. Yeah, so it's going to be a mad dog house around here. And to be honest, that's something I've always wanted in the back of my mind. Never mind, mansions and expensive cars, because that's just like material things. But having loads of dogs, I've always wanted to have loads of dogs. And when I was young, like when I was very, very young, my mom wouldn't let me have more than one. So obviously when I moved to London, I could do whatever I wanted, and then I had 2 dogs for a long time. And then when our Minty died, we got another dog, so again we had 2 dogs. But yeah, we always wanted to have more, and my husband is exactly the same as me. It's like we don't really want human children, just more dogs, because humans not furry enough. So yeah, so now I have that, so it's great. I'm just keeping an eye on this gold thing. Okay, so it's happening. It is happening. If you guys are on my Twitter, I posted something earlier today about gold consolidating, because I see some people have just joined. So I posted that gold is consolidating on the daily chart, and it's also inside a daily swing extreme, which means it's quite likely doing that accumulation phase, and accumulation is usually followed by a markup phase going up. So yeah, that's that might be in development at some point this week, so just be careful with any shorts. And can it go down? Yeah, of course it can. It's the markets, anything can happen. But the point being is that when you have accumulation, when you have that sideways momentum, it is more likely that it's going to turn around. And that's why it's important to recognize those things. Jeff wants to know, hey Dee, what do you want to do? What do you do with those large average session ranges regarding the stop side? I've been getting stopped out a lot lately. Just increase the stop size, because we have that formula that I gave you in the Pro Dev, which is ASR divided by 4. You could also do ASR divided by 5 if it's a crazy over 200 ticks sort of range. So he says, my usual stop is 25 to 30 ticks with 2 contracts, but even 1 contract and 50 ticks, it's still over 1/4 of ASR on crude oil. In that case, try doing either 5 or 6 rather than 4, so divided by 5 or 6, and see whether you can get, really if you're having 50 tick stop losses, that's a bit too much. The only time I was using 50 tick stop losses was last year, when we had 600 and 700 ticks range during the coronavirus madness. You shouldn't really need to use anything too big. If you are, you're going to have to start using the stop loss optimization. So rather than using an entire pattern, maybe use just the bodies, or wait until it dips into sort of the middle past the conterminus line. So for example, let's say a bullish engulfing. So you have a bullish engulfing, conterminus line is there, we'll wait until it dips more. So the point being is that if you have to use a stop that is massive, that means that some kind of an extra optimization should be happening. And there's usually either more liquidity or more volatility. Both of those, they can open the door for strategies where you wait for something to dip slightly further into whatever pattern you're using to position yourself, or any kind of a TPO development. So if you're looking for a failed auction, for example, long failed auction, just, off the top of my head. You might not want to get involved immediately right after it goes back to initial balance. Maybe you can wait until it tests the initial balance low, or find the nearby demand area from a 15 minutes or even a 5-minute chart if you have really long wicks. Because usually when you have to use larger stop losses, it implies there's like wicks that are pretty big, or candle bodies themselves. So there are ways to kind of wait for a pullback into the pattern or into another TPL reference area before you actually get involved. So consider that. That's one of the main things. Because, I'm looking at this reversal in crude oil right now, for example. It actually printed a very nice phase 1. And I mean, that's like 35 ticks to get involved, even with... that's another question, Jeff. Are you maybe trading around crude oil inventories? Because that tends to cause a ridiculous amount of volatility. So obviously you're going to be whipped out unless you get really lucky. So that could be a problem. But right now, I'm looking at, obviously it fell down very nicely for London and for Asia, but now phase 1, looking at that post NY cut reversal slightly later, and yeah, so 56 to, I mean, to be honest, you can even do 20 ticks on this reversal, and that would be pretty cool, because you will be setting. So for reference, I'm looking at the 30-minute crude oil chart. I can't put it here because there's no way for me to share the screen, and I don't even have charts here. So I'm just literally looking at it on my screen. I don't know whether you can see that. Probably not. I really need to think this through next time. So yeah, let me have a look at what's going on with that crude oil. If I can maybe remote desktop. Yeah, so crude oil has gone a little bit mad, but like I said, when you have a pattern where that might be turning around, that it's not massive, you shouldn't need to use anything too big. So what I'm seeing here now is definitely a potential to use like a 25-30 tick stop, which is fine. If you do manage to catch like a really nice move, you can increase your risk reward, but obviously it sounds like you're getting stopped out, in which case take a look at your trade locations, where you're trading from. It could be a number of things, like this is never as simple as, oh yeah, do this and it'll be fine. So the problem is maybe trade locations. The problem is maybe timing. Are you going right after 3 p.m., which is NY cut, so right after 10 a.m. your time? If you are, then try waiting a bit longer and then seeing whether that helps. So yeah, but jumping into trades without, some kind of a really good... Again, that's another thing. What sort of a setup are you doing? Are you doing a break of initial balance setups? Or are you doing reversal setups where you're waiting for something to fall? Yeah, so going in early, that would be one of the things that you need to work on. So try and not go in early. Try and maybe push it by half an hour or an hour. Because what I've noticed with crude oil in particular, it tends to turn around 11 a.m. your time. So yeah, with reversals, definitely wait, until you have either a bigger pullback. There's a lecture in level 3 called Consolidations Entry, I think it's called. And what I do there is I effectively don't use the conterminous line of the consolidation, but instead I use the area kind of halfway into the consolidation. You can even use the very bottom of the consolidation, but obviously with that, you're running a risk of not getting into a trade. So it depends. You need to talk to yourself and to see whether you will be okay missing a trade every so often for the better opportunity to get a better entry. But all of it literally involves waiting. So perhaps that's where you are right now in your development, and you need to train yourself to be patient and to try and control that FOMO and just go, well, you know, if I miss it, I miss it. It doesn't matter. At some point in your development, obtaining a pretty good trade over being in a trade do or die should take precedent. Rita wants to know, it's my first year of trading, so I'm wondering what to expect during January. Will GC still work? Any products you can recommend? Reduce stop losses and take profits. For GC, for gold, it's actually one of the only products that keeps shooting wherever it's going to shoot. So there's no real notable differences for commodities, for precious metals in particular. So silver and gold are pretty active. All the rest of them, like crude oil, goes through a bit of a lull in January. Equities definitely go through a bit of a lull because all the big boys, like one of our coaches says, they're in the Hamptons. They're not in the office, and they tend to kind of get involved when they come back from their respective annual leaves, which is mid to late January, and then everything kind of picks up. So with gold and silver, because I know that's what you trade, I would say just stick to the rules. Keep going. In fact, one of the only products that we keep running on our algorithms the year round is gold, because it just doesn't have that dry up. And if you do any kind of back test to test whether the strategy is working, all of the others, especially if you have crude oil break out of initial balance, like that's one of the things that really does exceptionally well for crude in general throughout the year, but not during the summertime, especially July and August. They get really quiet, and also January is quiet. But leading up to Christmas, we can have some really, really good times. So for example, the only year when I saw that wasn't the case and we actually had a really terrible Christmas was the year that Trump got elected. It was hilarious. It was like everything was going, you know, amazingly well, and then he got elected and the markets practically died. Nothing was moving. It was a really, really difficult time. So yeah. So for GC, Rita, I would say don't change much. Don't change much on gold, but if you are trading crude oil or equities, then you might want to be a little bit more careful. You might want to reduce the frequency of the trades. You definitely need to behave as if it's like a rangy time of the year, which, you know, it will be. So things like ASR and ADR reversals might become better, but there's also that line on Blahtech DR that's thick. If you just put the default Blahtech DR on the chart, you will see there's a thicker line. Now that represents 0.5 DR, which is a fixed measure from GMT midnight. So it's like an ADR, but we use GMT midnight and then we calculate 0.5 of ADR higher and 0.5 of ADR lower. So that becomes a measure that you can use for reversals. Obviously not just jumping in, do or die, just going, oh yeah, it's 0.5 DR. Jump in. No, you still have to see whether there's any kind of a reversal, rejection, pattern. Obviously, if you have a neutral day, that becomes even more difficult. So if you have a neutral day and it's January and you're trying to trade like crude oil, probably not the greatest of ideas. So yeah. But definitely don't reduce stop losses and take profits. Don't reduce stop losses. You can reduce take profits. So if you get involved, aim to get like a 1R, and I know it's not the best because you do need to have quite high accuracy, and then it becomes like a chicken or egg situation. It's like, well, do I do this? But if I lower the stop loss, then I get whipped out. But if I'm right on direction, like, then what? So to avoid that, you can reduce the take profits, but I would highly suggest against reducing stop losses. So just stick to that average session range divided by 4 formula for the quieter times of the year. So yeah. All right, so it looks like gold is holding just about. We've got 3 minutes until the end of the candle. There was an early value acceptance that I saw on gold, and then it had a really nice volatile moment. You're welcome, Rita. Jeff said it seemed that like afternoon reversal is starting during the lunch hour before day range fill and then really get going after 1 p.m. Problem being, if you wait until the DRF, the move has been missed. You're not seeing things. This is something that I've talked about on the live streams before. It's been something that's been going on since coronavirus. So the day range fills can start earlier. However, they're a little bit hit and miss in crude oil. Sometimes they're really good and they kind of start and keep going. But I've been still trading around my, what is that, your time? 1:30, 1:30 is 6:30 over here. So yeah, I've still only been looking at like late time of the day, and I would just do my best to find an entry. You don't necessarily have to be right on that, the reversal as it comes. You can take advantage of maybe an RBR that happens on a very small time frame. You can even maybe use a pullback to a newly formed conterminous line from maybe an RBR, or you can wait for a 5-minute bullish engulfing in the same bullish or bearish engulfing in the same reversal kind of direction. So if it's falling, it's going to be a bearish engulfing, obviously. So yeah, there are ways to position yourself and not necessarily rely on that first part of whatever lunchtime hour brings. But yeah, I think it's because so many more people are now trading, and you have retail investors that are smaller, but on thin markets they do make quite a big difference. And a thin market, that's crude oil. It's very easy to move it with any number of contracts. I mean, if you're trading like 5 contracts, that's already pushing to the point where you will have a little bit of an impact. And then if you're trading 20-30 contracts, you're definitely having an impact there. In fact, sometimes when I'm trading it, when I put a position on, I notice a jerk like in the opposite direction to whatever I'm doing, and it's definitely basically 40 lots going in and having that effect. So thin markets very easily moved by smaller investors, and that's why lunchtime hour has become a thing. During the lunchtime hour, you get even thinner liquidity because some of the big boys go off to have their lunch, and then everybody else starts to trade. And the retail guys, you don't really have much lunch hour. People who are retail traders, they just trade and trade and trade. The majority of them, they don't actually go and have breaks. So yeah, so that's been a very interesting phenomenon in the last year. However, like I said, I don't really get involved in lunchtime too much. If I do, I would take like a 1-to-1 and then I would bail. So I would take a reversal, 1 hour, and that's it. And then I come back again for the day range fill proper time when everything starts picking up. So you can have the start of the reversal, but generally it still kind of follows that pattern that the majority of the volume is going to pick up during the right times of day, when the big boys are either taking off their positions or getting more. I just love these people like, hello. It's like, hello, who are you? So yeah, I've still been. I just look at day range fill, and I don't really care too much what happened during the lunchtime. If the move had already started, I will try and find a way to position myself. It doesn't have to be price based. It could be, running into, I don't know, like depends on the setup, obviously. So you could have an auction fade that's already started. You might have some single prints around there. You can go against the single prints as well. That's a pretty good strategy too. It really depends what you're trying to do, but that's always there's always a way. Definitely always a way. So you don't have to be super pedantic. If you've got the direction and you think you're fairly confident, all you need is just a little bit of a nudge on somewhere on the price action to tell you, yep, we're actually continuing. And that will always be printed on any time frame. You'll be able to see it because markets are fractal. So whatever happens on a 2-minute chart, if you're correct on the direction, it will eventually show up on a 5-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute, 4 hours if you wait long enough. So yeah. All right, let's see what's gold doing, because I've been following that. So yeah, for now, looking at crude oil as well, I mean, it's got that slowdown exactly for post NY cut, so that's nothing odd. So yeah, you will have more days where that lunchtime hour might be a little bit of a jerkier, volatile thing, but you shouldn't let it scare you. If anything, look at it as a way to challenge your skills and to have more people, to have more people plowing into the market, and then you're going, okay, so all of these guys are doing that, but is that what's really happening? You know, use it as a way to bump up your order flow reading skills. It's like, what are the retail guys doing? How many people are longing this? And then work out whether they're correct or whether you're correct, and you can go against them. That's the whole point. And with institutional trading as well, there is a bit of a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. When you get a lot of big institutions that are plowing in, sometimes you get a lot of the lower guys who are smaller guys who are trying to do whatever they're doing, whatever the institutional guys are doing, because they see them on the tape, which I absolutely despise. I hate tape reading. In fact, I've probably used tape for like 3 seconds in my career, and decided that I actually see things happening better on price action. Because the problem with tape is that you do get to see these large guys, but they're not those moves that result from that kind of an approach. They usually fizzle out within a few ticks. So you have some companies out there that are teaching order flow that involves just grabbing like a few ticks when you see those institutional players. But that's not what we're about. Market Stalkers is about finding bigger trades. So why take 4 ticks when you can take 30, 60, 70? Like, I just don't see the point. And there's so much more room for mistakes when you are trading such small positions and walking a thin line on the profit curve. It's better to have a safer profit curve where you are aiming for 2-to-1, 2.2, 1.8, rather than going 1-to-1, 0.7, and always at risk of getting it super wrong and not having good accuracy, and that's where problems start. So I'm always in favor of lower accuracy but higher risk reward within reason, not aiming for a bazillion takes intraday, because that's not. Intraday trading cannot be about grabbing 5R every day, because you're not going to get that. It's just not really possible. First of all, as humans, we're not objective enough. Second of all, we don't really have enough focus to do that. So, you have to find that middle ground where your stop losses are small enough for intraday to work for you, but large enough to not get whipped out after 3.5 seconds. Does that make sense? And that's why in my pro dev, I give you a very specific formula that makes the whole model, the risk model, it works, right? That just purely from a numbers statistical point of view. And that's why many of you are able to maintain profitability even when you're not, when you're kind of making mistakes and you're still practicing and you're not sure whether you're doing things right. And you can't afford to make loads of mistakes, because every so often, multiple times in a week, you will get a trade 2, 3 that goes to 2R, 3R, right? One of the guys who is on my gold, but he hasn't gone into intensive mentoring period, so he's kind of lurking in the gold portal. He said that actually what he's observed, the way I'm doing things, is that while I do say 2-to-1 with a specific size of stop loss relating to the volatility of the product that you're trading, that's what I do. And on paper, yes, I have a 2R multiples target, but really because I very rarely get hit and my drawdowns are only maybe about 0.5R maximum, and I bail if I see that something's not happening. So I never really allow it to go to, well, I do allow it sometimes, like if I'm really wrong and you get in a trade and it knocks you out in 3 seconds, then you're wrong, right? There's not much you can do about it. But the size of the stop losses that I have, it does give you some time to think about whether your trade should be in there or not. And because of that, if I see something that I didn't want to see, I try to remain as objective as possible and I pull it off. Once I've pulled it off, I basically decide whether I might get involved in it again, but only if I see what I wanted to see in the first place. Sometimes that event comes a little bit later than I expected. It never really comes earlier, I'm going to say. It's always like, oh, maybe I've rushed into a trade. So, in a way, Jeff, I also have that problem where I sometimes get a little bit too eager. But it's not really that detrimental for me, because when I am wrong and when I don't see that move that I wanted to see in a specific time period, I bail. So this guy, he said, oh, actually, your real R multiples, considering that your drawdowns and you never really let it get to the full stop loss, it's actually a lot more than 2R. So you're really looking at 3R, 4R, 5R net. So think about it that way. Maybe bailing early if you don't see what you want to see, maybe that could be something to explore. Obviously, don't explore it on live. Always explore it in the simulated accounts. That's why, you can practice under pressure and see whether that works. So yeah, it's all a process. It never really ends. It's just a matter of minimizing your own weaknesses to a point where they are no longer making a huge impact on your P&L. And that's where trading is very similar to sports. Because in sports, there's no end game. Your skills, you're always working on them. It's not like, oh yeah, well, I've learned how to play football. Now I'm done. It's not how you measure things. So if there's still things that you can work on, better movements, better, this, that, there's always parts of your skill that you can make better. And if you're someone who doesn't like that, well, trading is probably not going to be for you. I like it because of that never-ending self-improvement aspect. I never get bored, and I need constant intellectual stimulation to keep things interesting. It's just how I am. I'm not someone who can get up, do the same thing, mind-numbing chores and stuff. In fact, I hate doing things like things that don't really advance your life in any way, like washing the dishes, doing laundry and everything. I use it to strengthen my neural connections, but it's definitely not something that I would dedicate loads of time to. However, looking at the markets, seeing how I've performed, and in the markets, you're only as good as your last week of trading, right? That's how it goes. So if I see that something needs work, I will then make that my priority. I will make that my task, and then it is a matter of a habit. But it's a kind of different habit. It's not like getting up and doing something that never advances anything. It's interesting. It advances your brain. It advances the way you think. It makes you into a more resilient person. It makes you understand more about what you're all about. And you'd be surprised how many people have no idea who they really are in certain situations. Yeah, my little ones, they are... so for those of you who are just joining us, our Pomeranian and our Cavalier, they're family pets. They've just had 6 Cavapoms. We were expecting 2 or 3, so now I'm puppy sitting, which is the reason why I don't have my charts here. And they are in the corner. We have the super mom resting at the minute. Let's see if I can get one of them. They're all asleep. This is so cute. Can I get one of your babies? Can I get one? Let's get the big boy. Let's get the big boy. Let's get the big boy. There we go. He's here. He's here. Don't worry. Yeah, he's here. He's here. He's not going anywhere. He's here. He's here. He's here. So here he is. This is the biggest boy out of them all. His name is Rimmer. His name is Rimmer. He kind of looks like a Rottweiler right now. He came out fourth, and he's massive. He's absolutely massive. He's a bit of a moany one. He doesn't really take too kindly to not having food. So some of the other ones are quite hungry, and he's quite big, so he can't quite burrow down into the whole area for food as some of the rest of them do. But yeah, he's massive. He's gone over 400 grams, which is absolutely crazy. His name is Rimmer by that old British TV show called Red Dwarf. We have two of them who are named by Red Dwarf characters. So we have Crichton and we have Rimmer. If you've never seen Red Dwarf, you definitely need to see it, because it's like one of my ultimately favorite TV shows. Oh, he started to feed now. He's having a little bit of a din-dins over here. So yeah, we've got 4 boys and 2 girls, and one of the girls is the smallest, but she is definitely doing well. She's gained so much weight now, and we're not really worried about her anymore. All right, I pull him off. It's not time for din-dins yet. Hold on, let me take him back. Yeah, the smallest one. Bon is not very happy with me taking her children, but she's been quite compliant. She knows we are helping her. And this is the smallest one. This is Astrid. Yeah, Axel or Angus. No, we didn't really name people or pets by musicians. Apart from Bon. Bon is named after Bon Scott. This is Astrid, and if you've ever watched Fringe, she's named by the Fringe character Astrid, and thereby her names are also Astro, Ostrich, Aspirin, Asterix. She is the smallest girlie. I also like to call her Greybeard, because she's got very light features, and she's pretty cute. But yeah, the difference between her and Rimmer is like, they look like they're different breeds. It's hilarious. Rimmer, yes. I know Mama disappeared, sorry. So yeah, puppy sitting. If you're hearing squealing in the background, that's Rimmer. Just like his namesake. Yeah, crypto or Nasdaq. Yeah, well, Crichton. I mean, I'm a huge fan of sci-fi shows. If you hear, yeah, squealing, that is Rimmer. So Rimmer in the show, he is he's really a hologram in the show, but he is this unscrupulous, resource-grabbing, moany bastard, and Rimmer is actually pretty much the same. This Rimmer. No, I'm not a designer dog breeder. No, not really. We just wanted a whole bunch of dogs, and we love cattle poms. So yeah, obviously we know that there's a huge problem with litter mate syndrome that can happen in large litters. So we're going to be training them individually. They're going to be going to doggy daycare one by one. They're going to be sleeping in separate crates, and then they'll also have supervised time to bond with each other. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of work, but a lot of fun as well. So what else am I doing in life, eh? I'm constantly at home now, and it doesn't really look like this situation with COVID and stuff is going to change anytime soon. So any kind of offices and having, going back to having physical spaces where we have to be every day, that's definitely not happening. I think the whole world has changed now for that work from home culture, which I think many people have been waiting for. I've been a proponent of remote working for many years. Last time I actually worked in the city was 2018, so I haven't really been back, definitely. I prefer being at home. I think it gives you a better way to to manage your own time the way you want, rather than having a micromanager sit on your shoulder and just go, what are you doing? What are you doing? It was one of the things that I really hated about offices. Yeah, Jeff, we are getting boosters. I actually just got my invite to do the booster. So I'm probably going to do it in January sometimes, because obviously if the booster affects me very badly, because I had the Pfizer and I'm probably going to have Pfizer again. So if that affects me too much and I'm kind of down for the count for like 2 days, that's not going to be good or fair on my husband, who will have to do like all of the puppy sitting himself. And right now, because Bon got sick, my Pomeranian girl, she got really sick, and I knew there was something wrong, but then the vets, God. So what happened is that she gave birth, and there was 6 of them. Jeff says, I got my booster 2 days ago. It was much worse than the first 2. You see, the bizarre thing about me was that the first Pfizer dosage was absolutely horrible. I was literally down for three days. I couldn't leave the bed. I was delirious. My head felt like someone injected a whole bunch of liquid in it, and it was like just floating in there, trying to get out. And then after 2 days, it was fine. And then the second dosage, nothing. No, I'm always like the opposites to everybody else, you know. So, yeah, it was. Yeah, so I don't know how I'm gonna react to the booster, but I'm definitely expecting some kind of a reaction. And my husband also, he's older than me, so he's in his 50s. I'm in my 40s. I mean, we're all in that, you know, similar sort of high risk age group, whatever, old people, Granny D. So yeah, he also got an invite, but obviously we can't. You know, it's not going to be fair on either one of us to just, you know, leave the other one to deal with 6 puppies and 2 dogs. So yeah, so Bond got sick. What happened is that she retained at least 2 placentas. So if you know anything about midwifery or any kind of giving birth and stuff, like I didn't know anything about this, but I educated myself. I don't have children. I don't plan any children of humankind ever. But obviously I had to, you know, I had to find out everything like right now, yesterday, when we discovered that Bon is indeed with puppies. So I started reading, I got really good books and stuff. I phoned up a couple of people who I know who have had dogs and bred dogs before. And they all said to me all the common problems that can happen, what you need to do. And we did really well. Like, you know, we were there. The first dude, Crichton, he was actually born in the garden. Like, we knew she was in labor, but she kept going outside because obviously she felt that something's coming. But she's a first mom, so she didn't really know what's going on. And then she went outside, and luckily my husband was watching her. And suddenly he sees something. So he ran to the garden and he goes, Dee, first one has arrived, it's out. And I was like, what do you mean it's out? It's fucking freezing outside. So I went and got one of their fluffy baskets, and we put both of them in the basket, and we took her upstairs to this bedroom where we have the whelping box in the corner. And then it all started. So every half an hour they just kept coming. And when we got 3, we were like, okay, we're done. And then another one and another one. And then there was a break for 2 hours, nothing. So I started getting, you know, hopeful that was it. And then she stood up, and, you know, I thought it was going to be the placentas because she didn't deliver 3 of them. And that's a huge problem. And then another pup came. So another little Astrid popped out. And she was the smallest. So, you know, that was the 6th one. And, yeah, so not, you know, unexpected, but, you know, we are really enjoying it. So anyways, the second day, right after, you know, she kind of had a bit of sleep and stuff, and she was really happy. She was like, oh my God, my kids, like my doggie is like, she's so lovely. She's a very, very lovely mom, and she adores her children, and she's being super nice, super tolerant of them already. But yeah, so I phoned up the vet and I said we could only see 3 placentas, and they all tried to convince me that I'm not good at counting. Oh yeah, you know, the dogs, they kind of eat it and whatever, you probably didn't. And I said, yeah, no, I don't think so. Like, we were there Like, you don't understand. Like, I have a really close relationship with her. She was letting us deliver her babies effectively. Midwife D. Like, not midwife, midwife for dogs. So yeah, and I said to them, yeah, I'm not really sure about it. I mean, what are the symptoms? And they said, well, you would see that something's wrong. And then I measured her temperature, and her temperature was a little bit elevated. And I said, yeah, her temperature is not exactly normal. And they said, yeah, no, don't worry. It's normal for it to be a little bit elevated after labor, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, day 3, she got really ill. It just all went downhill very quickly. Second day, she was already a bit listless, and we noticed she was like struggling a bit with the whole nursing, and then it just got really, really bad, and she got delirious, and we took her to the emergency vet. They tried to deliver the placentas. It didn't happen. Now the thing is, we know there were definitely 2 in there. The third one, we suspect that the 2 of the boys are twins. So even if that's so, let's say it wasn't 3 placentas, let's say it was 2, but there was still only, we were missing stuff, and obviously that got infected. She got ill. She had to go on antibiotics, and then at one point antibiotics, they did start working, but then because she wasn't eating much, her gastric system completely started to reject everything, and she was throwing up water, anything that you would put down her. It was so distressing to see. So I was like, oh God, I mean, what's going to happen? And we had to start bottle feeding the pups. So for the first few days, literally we were up like every 2 hours to feed the babies, bottle feeding them. So we had to handle them a lot, even though they say, don't handle the dogs for the first 3 weeks. We had to. She wasn't able to feed them, so they would have died, and we were here like kind of like bottle feeding each and every one of them, while Bond was getting better, and she was downstairs away from them. She didn't want to have anything to do with them. And then finally, when we figured out that her gastric system is not really taking the antibiotic, I had to take her in every day to get an antibiotic shot. So that sorted things out. She finally got better, and literally 2 days ago, she expressed interest in her babies, and she wanted to go and see them, and she's been with them ever since. So it's much easier now. I've actually managed to sleep for 5 hours for the first time in 12 days. So yeah, and now it's all nice. So they're all super cute. She's very happy that she can spend time with them, and yeah. But we're still on kind of puppy duty, making sure that the runt is feeding enough, and that she's gaining weight, that the others are not bullying her. Because you can have like jockeying for the nipple, right? You can have pigs that just gorge themselves. You've seen Rimmer. Although I suspect Rimmer is a bit of a throwback, because there's this thing called a throwback Pomeranian, and that's what Bon is. So she is a bigger pom. She's not teacup. She's actually like 14 pounds. She's not exactly small. And I reckon because we bred her with a Cavalier, the throwback genes might actually come out even more in some of them. Rimmer looks like a different species compared to the rest of them. He's like a piglet. My husband was saying, let's get him a collar, take him out for a walk. Get him a bowl. But yeah, it's nice. I'm really happy that we have a big doggy family, and that making sure that everyone's happy, and that everyone's eating and sleeping well, staying safe. Obviously, actually Rita came over to try to see the puppies, but my husband said, obviously because Bon was still like under infections, and we didn't want to introduce other contaminants into the whole thing. And then Astrid, we had to handle her completely sterile, because we didn't know whether her immune system was strong enough to take anything. Yes, exactly. Rita says, what a great story. Dreams are coming true. Soon you'll be living in your big country house with your big perfect family. Yes, doggy family. I mean, our house here is great. I really love our little London house, but we've just outgrown it, especially with us doing businesses from the house. And, I have a TV studio, and this is only a 2-bedroom terraced London house. And it's very expensive, but it's time to move. It's definitely time to move. So I don't know whether we're going to go for like a massive country house, but because I don't like big spaces. When I was a kid, I grew up in a really big house. And what used to happen is that everyone just used to use like the kitchen and maybe like like maybe 5 rooms out of the place, and it was a mansion. Like you could get lost in it. And I never liked it. I really thought it was a bit cold, and unless you have a really, really big family with loads of kids, dogs are different. These dogs are cattle problems. They're not going to be like Labradors or anything like that, so it's not like they need a room each. So I just think a little bit more space. It would be nice, something, you know, manageable. And yeah, we'll see. We'll definitely see. So it's certainly time for change. Let's put it that way. But yeah, it's been quite a whirlwind. It's also been my birthday recently, so I actually expected the puppies to come around my birthday or maybe a couple of days before, and yet they surprised us, so they came early. They're November babies. So yeah, strange. You know, it's so weird how if I look at my life 15, 20 years ago, you know, probably even about 10 years ago, to be honest, when I was still a musician, how much things have changed. It's weird how your life can suddenly seem like you've completely, you've just completely switched gears, you know, you've switched planets almost. Everything is so different. Right, so looking at the gold chart, there's still a consolidation. 1 hour chart is showing a very nice kind of orderly consolidation, but the wicks are pretty big. So Jeff, if you have a look at the 1 hour chart on gold, you will see what I mean with the big wicks. So this would be the time to maybe look at a really low time frame, like maybe on an M5, and locate either a conterminous line or wait for a reaction deeper into the level rather than just jumping in on a conterminous line. That's kind of the idea. So, you know, you see a consolidation, you see a lot of volatility, everything is jumping up, jumping in, jumping up, and then you just have to try and find the deepest area that will make sense for the highest risk reward given whatever you've got. So Rita said everything is inside initial balance. That's not unusual, especially when you have bigger. Let me just try and remote desktop again into. I can't share my screen sadly, so I'm just gonna have to have a look at what's happening. So yeah, so crude oil, yeah, is looking like it wants to break out, but it's still nothing, and it's below the initial balance. So you would have to really wait until that breaks out of the initial balance range, first and foremost, and then there was an attempt at an acceptance of value on gold, but again that hasn't broken much of the initial balance either. So everything is non-trend at the moment. That's one of the things that you want to look out for. You don't really want to trade when the price hasn't gone outside of the initial balance range yet. That's always much more difficult because it means that the institutional traders are just not there. And you won't get that nice momentum either side, either for failed auction or continued auction. It's always going to be a little bit tricky. Let's just have a look at equities quickly. Like I said, I can't share the screen. I am looking at my remote desktop in the office. Equities, Nasdaq is looking a bit better. That's actually gone into a sustained auction, and it's just trying to reject the value area. So if that stays above the value area, you might actually have a trade there, long trade. Still has a very decent range. Hold on, what am I looking at? I don't have my glasses actually because it's a bit difficult to see. Is that? I am definitely, my eyes are aging, guys. They're aging. Is that Nasdaq or? Sorry, that's Dow Jones. Okay, so Dow Jones could be a long. I know some of you trade it. Let's have a look at Nasdaq finally. All right, Nasdaq also inside day, failed auction in progress. So yeah, hitting that supply on a 30-minute chart from a drop that happened during the second half hour of the initial balance. So yeah, failed auction was a possibility there in light of the inside open. So inside open means you're looking for moves that fizzle out quickly. So inside open very rarely brings super long moves. Sometimes, yes, you can have like these crazy moves that just keep going. But for the most part, you're going to spend a lot of time just waiting around for the real move to happen, and it never comes. So if you've gotten onto my live trading archive, Gold members have got it included in their package already, as do the Silver Plus members. Everybody else, it's an add-on. It's an optional add-on that you can buy on the website. But basically, the point is that over time, I've actually been working on limiting my own risk reward on inside days to one hour, because the amount of times that I've had moments where I identify a good direction and I know it's an inside day, but it's one of those things. It's like, okay, I'm just kind of trying to improve myself, and I'm a pretty good trader. I know that I'm very capable already, but there's still ways that where I'm like, oh, why did I do that? You never really get away from that. You will always have a little bit of self-doubt, but then the patterns emerge, and it starts to happen over and over. And for me, what kept happening is that I would identify a very good opportunity, it would go to 1 hour, and then it would come back to scratch. And then I would close a trade and have nothing to show for. So all that work, and I was like, well, how many times has this happened to me? So I started tracking it. And I realized that on inside days, apart from like maybe once or twice when the market really broke out and just went on a run, really 90% of the times when I would get involved into an inside day, I would miss out on a 1 hour opportunity to take profits. So I started taking profits at 1 hour. And these days, I'm not even looking for anything more. I'm just like, inside day, 1 hour. And you just make that into like almost like a conditional logic. If inside day, then take profit target at 1 hour. And that's it. So you have to have like that modification of your expected profits. And I talk about it in the profile course as well. When I say you've got a neutral day or you've got inside day, you have to manage the profit expectations. So looking for massive trades that will reject the value and go on a run, that's all great, but they're rarities. You're not going to get them all the time. So you have to modify your approach and your mindset. And of course, we all want to have, we want to have days where every day we make those big trades, but that's just not the reality of trading. That's, once in a blue moon kind of thing. And that's why you need to have a look at what works most often within a tight framework of very rigidly set rules, which, profile does give you. And everything starts with the open sentiment. That's why it's so important to identify the inside day, the fact that none of the other sessions or the current institution have made an effort to move the price away from wherever it was yesterday. That's a very big sign that you're not really going to have a massive day. And like I said, there have been a couple of moments where crude oil or gold did break out, equities as well to a degree, but for now, today, everything is pretty much inside initial balance, and some of them are inside days as well. So we can't expect, you can't expect massive moves to happen. And on those days, you have two options. And one option is to limit your profits to 1 hour. Another option is to work very bloody hard to get the extremes of the established ranges, to get the extreme of the initial balance or extreme of the supply and demand, or some kind of extreme of a range that was established on a super low time frame. But I don't like doing that. Like, honestly, I like my trading to be stress-free and pretty zen. And if I have to spend 2 hours dicking around and just for the sake of getting those extra 5 ticks on the entry, and so I just can't be bothered. And you will notice that in my trading. I do use very low time frames sometimes for entry, but most times I will just stick to 15 and 30-minute charts, and that allows me also to do other things. I don't have to stare at the charts all the time. I can just identify the direction, wait for my setups, and then I can just glance at it once or twice an hour to see whether I've got the pattern that I want. And then once I am in, I can go walk my dogs, I can go do software development, I can go do meetings, I can do whatever. So, you know, it doesn't bind me to the screen. I'm not going to be in the shackles of intraday trading on very low time frames. I don't do that. And no one should. No one should. Seriously, that's just one way to increase stress in your life for no apparent reason. More hours stared at the charts does not equal more money, and it certainly doesn't equal better profit and loss. Worse, in fact. It's going to be pretty terrible. So Rita says she went in on a little bit of a NQ failed auction, but nothing too spectacular. Yeah, that was the only obvious thing that I could see as well. And now it's hit that supply. See on how can I show you this, guys? Oh, it's so annoying. No, there's no way to share a screen, unfortunately. So I'm looking at not NQ. I'm looking at Dow Jones, which is US 30 or YM. It's hit a supply on a 30-minute chart after extending the initial balance downwards. So it crawled back up for a failed auction and then went back to hit the first supply on a low time frame. That is a setup that I like to refer to as the weakness inside initial balance. It's not the easiest thing to execute because it is inside the initial balance, obviously, and it's technically happening as a failed auction. Does that make sense? It's like market stalker setups, failed auction. So what happens is that the market goes back into the initial balance and then runs into a problem area and then doesn't complete the failed auction, which technically should go to the top of the initial balance, right? So yeah, so that's a setup that I have done in the past on Inside Days, and that works pretty well for me. It is in the live trading archives. If you see responsive activity trades section, so there's probably about 7 or 8 of them in there that you can have a look. Jeff says, is there any software that you know of where you can get stats on major session moves, like during day range fill, 30% had an engulfing pattern, and 50% of ADR was exhausted, 20% leaving Q point on H4? Well, no, because obviously all of the stuff that you're talking about, that's all my concepts. So unless I do it, yeah, you're not going to get that. So you have to keep in mind that we're still very new, right? So I've been doing this market stalkers community and trying to get people to learn how to trade properly since. I mean, well, I kind of did a little bit of it in 2016 when I was still trading for prop, but then it really kind of started taking off in 2018, and then it really took off in 2019. So it's still a new company. I didn't really hire too many people until very recently. So even now we're just a small company. There's only like 12 of us all in. So, and most of them are developers, and then some of them are helping me answer emails and stuff. Hold on. We've got some developments. Just give me a second. Nope. You bet. Oh God. One thing I would never think that puppies do. I think because they were away from the mom, they're a little bit distressed sometimes, and their sucking reflex has not really been satisfied. So a couple of them go around sucking off other boys. So obviously I can't let that happen. So yeah, I go and pull them off and put them on mom. So yeah, you would, Jeff, I would probably say I would probably say you would have to run trades for yourself and maybe keep track of it by yourself. So, for example, if you want to see how many times, EdgeWonk is actually really good for that, because you can track custom metrics. So you can, for example, say, you'll have to do it yourself, obviously, so it is slow. But for example, you could go time of day, day range fill, how many of them had an engulfing pattern. But to be honest, I do have a daily range algorithm that actually uses that exact thing that you were talking about, so ADR plus day range fill. And that one is one of our most profitable algorithms. It has accuracy of about 66% on crude oil. It varies depending on which whole thing which product you're using, obviously, so it's not going to be the same on everything. Jeff says inappropriate puppy content is going to get censored by YouTube. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, does it work if I apologize? If they apologize, we're sorry, we're naughty. Yeah. So yeah, I would say if you want to track it yourself, you can use EdgeWonk to track custom metrics. I do have EdgeWonk, a little bit of a affiliate link with them. And they even offered to come onto the channel to talk about stuff, but I just haven't had the time to arrange all of that. So yeah, maybe in the new year. But yeah, so EdgeWonk has got this way of you creating any custom metrics. That can be anything. It could be technical, but it can also be psychological. They also have a section on missed trades, like a whole bunch of stuff. It's really, really interesting. In fact, I should probably make a YouTube video explaining all of that. All right, Mama is on the case there. Oh, bless, that's so cute. So yeah, if you want to run it yourself, you would just put in a set of parameters in EdgeWonk to satisfy 3 or 4 conditions. But beware that the more conditions you are asking for, the more difficult it's going to be. So with the algorithms especially, and to be honest, even with your own setups, you don't want to have like a million conditions that you have to look at and to be satisfied, because that's not how you come up with profitable strategies. So the simplest, you can keep it to 2 or 3 conditions that need to be there. Rather than looking for 4-hour Q point, needs to exhaust average daily range and average session range. It needs to have a supply and demand. Then it also needs to have bullish engulfing, and it needs to have it. Like, that's 6 things, right? You're never going to have a trade. You're just going to be waiting and waiting and waiting, and you're going to be like, okay, well, I've done 1 trade in 3 months, or worse, 1 trade in 6 months. So you can't look at it that way. You have to kind of do your best with maybe 2 or 3 conditions, right? So what I do, typically when I write an algorithm, and that algorithm has only 2 things. It's got time as well. All of my algorithms have got a time component, but let's take the time away. But so basically, the ADR exhaustion algorithm has got first condition to be average daily range to be exhausted already. Second condition is to have a bullish engulfing strong on a 5-minute chart. That's it. Okay, just 2 things in a particular time. So let's say 3. So time, pattern, loose trade location. And then I've got another algorithm which I have shown in the YouTube videos before, and that's the one on crude oil that breaks the initial balance range at post NY cut and kind of keeps going as a form of a post NY cut reversal. But I don't have the post NY cut reversal there. I literally just have a condition where the direction is taken wherever the initial balance is broken first. So I don't really care whether it's down or up, or whether it's a post NY cut reversal or not. I literally just take break of initial balance. It needs to hold above initial balance range. Done. That is it. So again, that's what? Time plus a break of a level, hold above the level. Again, 3. Anything more than 3 per setup, and you're looking at overkill. You're looking at setups that will never happen, or will happen so rarely that you will never trade. So yeah, you can track things like that, but just be mindful of overkill. that is the mistake that we made when we first embarked on the whole algorithms thing. So we were all, yes, we're going to make an algorithm that replaces D. D is never going to have to trade by herself alone, by herself ever again manually. And that did not work because it was too many conditions. And while I thought that I was looking at all of the stuff, in reality I found out that all I look at is really 2 or 3 conditions. So it was a huge learning curve for me. Yeah, so be careful. Yeah, too many things, too much. It's gonna mean rare trades. And you know, you want something that happens fairly frequently, several times a week, and then you want to see how you can make the best of that. So for example, like I said, you want to track how many times does that work on a particular product. So if you take, you know, 3 months, so you take 60 days, and then track how many times you have an event where ADR is exhausted, 4-day range fill, and you have a bullish engulfing on a time frame. It could be a 5-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute. You have to pick that for yourself, and then put it all in EdgeWonk and see what kind of stats you get. It's the easiest way to do it if you can't code for yourself. God, it's so funny. So whenever Bond goes into the welcome box, they're all just attack her. It's like the hottest chick in town has come in. Come on. Alright, so crude oil, what is it doing? Let's have a look. Yeah, crude oil being super slow for post and white cut. Gold still in that range, kind of dropping to the bottom of the range. Yeah, not really happening. Nothing's really happening. What a boring day, eh? Yeah, spreadsheets. Jeff says, try to make spreadsheets and do it visually, but there are too many variables, too many situations where the finding falls in between the rules. Yeah, exactly, and that's the markets for you. So this is why I say you're going to make the best of it, rather than going, has to be this, and this. You can't be super rigid. This is where mathematicians, technically, if they're not flexible enough, they struggle with it. They struggle with the fact that they're not getting all the conditions that they want to see. So that's the same problem with spreadsheets. Spreadsheets, for me, they're very difficult to read, even though I was the spreadsheet queen at one point. But yeah, you just have to kind of create 2 or 3 conditions that you want to see, track it for confidence purposes, but then, you know, it has to be something that you can visually turn into a chart, which is what EdgeWonk gives you in trade analytics. I know you have EdgeWonk, Jeff, so you might want to explore that side of things. It's pretty cool. I mean, one of the traders, because I don't really have much in EdgeWonk, I just kind of played around with it a little bit. I always used to use Trade View, not Trading View. It's an entirely different thing. There was a Trader View, VUE. It was like view meters. Different spellings, and they had just the like normal stats, but then you could add a couple of things. It wasn't nearly as flexible as EdgeWonk, so EdgeWonk definitely by far is the most flexible journal of that sort. Even Journalytics doesn't really come close to it because they only track trades that have happened rather than hypothetical things that you want to see and then measure based on custom stats. For your strategy, Jeff, so I would say one strategy would be tracking what's happening during day range fill, tracking when so day range fill plus bullish engulfing, maybe that would be one metric, one condition, one setup. And then the next one would be 20% of price was 20% of them was leaving a Q point on a 4-hour chart. That would be a second strategy. It can't be the same one, because that's where you get to a point of too many conditions. So yeah. lot of viewers today. I'm feeling stage fright. All right. Yeah. So daily chart, even though it's falling on goals, even though it's like fallen intraday, it's still in that same range. So I reckon it's still establishing sort of a launch pad, lift off pad. If that's not the case, and if you get a move that goes below sort of 1760 on spot charts, because I don't have futures charts on me right now. So a break of 1760 would mean that it's gonna keep going down, which could happen because on a monthly chart there is like a bit of a phase 3 going on, but it's a monthly chart, you know, that can take like 2 months to actually come true. So yeah. Jeff says, my stats are so much better when average daily range and average session range are exhausted, but it's not happening much recently. Yeah, that's because we're going through a little bit of a slowdown. Again, it's not unusual. You guys have had Thanksgiving. That's a major holiday there. So you're bound to have a little bit of a slowdown in activity. So it takes a while. So if you, for example, if you want to make that faster, if you want to get a faster change of the ADR ASR levels, because obviously there are statistical measures that take in 10 to 14 days. So it technically takes probably about a week or 2 weeks for the measure to change. So what you can do briefly as a part of your analysis, you can have a look at the 5-day average rather than 10 and 14. So if you go into the ADR, just set 5 days rather than 10 periods, 14 periods, whatever the default is currently. And that's going to give you closer ADR levels, dependent on whatever's happened in the last 5 days, and then you can maybe take those as reversal points. So just an idea. Another idea would be to only take the day trading time zone times. So instead of having a whole session range for every session range, you would change the session range to basically start at 6 or 1 p.m. your time, or just to look at post NY cut until lunchtime. So that's also an idea. In fact, Tim does that. One of our coaches. He's constantly like messing around with with the daily ranges. I don't have the patience for that. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But he's someone who's very good on very small time frames. So he trades off of like 2-minute charts always. He loves it. and because of that, he takes a lot more effort to make sure that his levels are coming from some sort of a statistical range exhaustion. And so what he does, he takes the Blahtech DR, and then he changes it from 2:30 p.m. start to 6:30 p.m. start, for example, if he's going to do day range fill time zone trading, and then he just takes that and trades either towards the exhaustion of the tiny day range fill range or against it if the range has already been hit. He also scales his stop losses for that. That doesn't work for me because I tried doing that. This is where each trader does things individually. I don't know why it works for him, it doesn't work for me, but it's just how it is, I guess. I suppose I do certain things and certain trades that work extremely well for me, but they don't work well for him. Tim is the king of auction fades, like absolutely smashing it with auction fades. Is probably his best setup. Whereas with mine, I think my best setup is breakout from initial balance. It's like the setup that works for me most consistently. Crude oil and gold like to do those, especially for post NY cut, and usually when you have an outside day. So I suppose, again, a combination of 2 or 3 things. So breakout of initial balance, mean reversion based on the open sentiment. And for those of you who are not profile traders, they're like, what is she saying? What? If you want to know what I'm saying, if you've never dealt with profile, order flow trading, I'm someone who utilizes multiple order flow strategies. I don't just keep to profile, I don't just keep to supply and demand, but I always like to have a reason why something's happening. One of the reasons why I do have the courses is because I do things in a particular way. I've managed to put together some statistical averages and then combine them with supply and demand on large time frames and market profile on very low time frames. So all of that makes a cohesive methodology that no one's ever done before. And I figured, well, I'm pretty good at talking and explaining things. Whether I was a music teacher before, because I was a musician before I went into trading for many years, and then I also taught music at one point. It wasn't like a very long time, but I do have a master's degree in music, which technically means that I could be a professor at a university if I wanted to, but I don't want to. However, teaching trading has definitely been. I've definitely been relying on a lot of the methodics that we were taught how to do as musicians, because it's the same thing. It's a performance discipline. And in a way, you can also say that music is a strategy environment, but also an uncertainty environment, because you never really know how it's going to go. You don't know whether the piano accompaniment is going to screw something up. You don't know how you're going to perform on the day. Like, there are unknowns, and that especially when you're ad-libbing, because I was a pop rock musician, but I have a classical degree. So as a pop rock musician, you're expected to ad-lib a lot. And you never know what's going to happen. Like, every day, it's just new. So all you're doing, you know the chord progressions, you're well acquainted with theory, and you know all the phrases that you're going to use and stuff. And it just sort of comes together in one moment, 1 minute, in like this beautiful semi-telepathic moment, if the people in the band are right. So yeah, and trading, I kind of feel is the same way. So you need a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience to actually come up with a good feel for everything, and then you're working within rigid rules for certain signals to come in for your trade, and that is down to your experience to manage the trade and to ensure that your stop losses are appropriately placed, which also includes not putting stop losses at like round numbers. Don't ever do that. Like, round number stop losses is like recipe for disaster. So if you're looking at a trade, let's say in crude oil, to go long at 71.38, the last thing you want to do is put a stop loss at 71 for a long trade. I guarantee you that the institutions at some point will test the round number. So it's always better, if you're looking for a long, to go under that long number, so under that round number. So it's for 71, it wouldn't be 71. You need to wait for the price to dip further, and then for you to place the stop loss somewhere at 70.9 or 70.85, and right away, if you look at where the price is right now, it's like, oh, 71.40. Well, it hasn't reached a round number, so it's probably not done falling. So that's not based on any kind of technical things, it's just based on pure common sense that the round number has not been touched, therefore we need to wait. And again, no one taught that. Like, this is something that I noticed purely when I was trading, and the fact that all of my stop losses, when I would put them under a round number or over, they would work much better. It would be like a much stronger position. So it's it's definitely something to keep in mind. And a round number is not just like 71.00, but also 71.50. That's also a round number. So yeah, every time. So you have those two references already, right? So try not to put your stop losses there. Try to put your entries around those levels. And again, it's something I explained in Pro Dev in quite some detail. So yeah, what a boring day. I'm kind of happy I'm not trading. Like, whoever got any kind of a trade today and actually managed to make money, well done. So yeah, okay. Alright guys, so we've been on for quite a while now, so I think I'm going to wrap this up. Hopefully you enjoyed this. This is going to be my only Q&A for today, because obviously I've got puppies to take care of. Hi Mohammed, I see you're joining us a bit late. If you have a question, just let me know right away, because I am thinking about signing off, but I'm willing to stick around for another sort of 10 minutes if you really, got a question that you would like me to answer. So for anyone who's now watching this, usually what I do, we have a whole membership thing on YouTube, and I do on like normal kind of weeks when I'm not on paternity leave. I usually do this on Thursdays. I do 2 sessions. I do one session as kind of like market overview, which always starts around 3:30 p.m. GMT. So about an hour after Wall Street opens, after NYSE opens. And then I usually do a Q&A just for the MS Ultimate members. That usually starts around 7:30 p.m. GMT. And why is because usually you get some setups that we can kind of talk through, maybe even try and trade. So if that's something that interests you, then you might want to have a look at that. But obviously in the last 2 weeks, last week we had obviously the whole puppy thing and Thanksgiving, and there was no point, like I wasn't gonna do a a live stream. Like last week Bon was ill, my Pomeranian was very ill, and then the previous week was Thanksgiving, so obviously I wasn't gonna do that. But yeah, so going forward I will try to go back to that. So 3:30 p.m. one session on Thursdays, and then 7:30 p.m. second Q&A session on Thursdays as well. And it's a pretty fun community, as you can see. Some of the guys in here, guys and girls, they ask really nice questions. You can actually learn quite a bit just by looking at what they're asking. You might be able to go through all the other previous live streams, and I do talk about all the other stuff, so you get to kind of get to know me a little bit more, because I do talk a lot of shit about things. And you can find out some of my views on things, and I've even talked about cryptos and how I'm getting involved in crypto. I've actually made a YouTube video on crypto staking and stuff, and I am about to release that at some point. I literally just need like 3 days to edit, and I haven't slept. I haven't had any time, so yeah. So from next week I'm hoping to get back to that. If not, if there's still stuff happening with the puppies and with Bon, because we're still not completely out of the woods with her, so I want to make sure I'm there with her. So I will probably do another one of these. So you can ask me questions. It's all still very, very trading related, as you can see, but I probably won't have charts again because I'll be on puppy sitting duty. But yeah, anyways, that's it for now. Thank you everyone for joining, and hopefully I'll see you next week.